Now, as we've seen large numbers of public sector job losses in Somerset and across the country, the government has been consistent throughout. We need private firms to pick up the slack. GDP figures out yesterday showed the economy got 0.5% bigger over the last 3 months, and that was faster than expected, and therefore positive news for Chancellor George Osborne.
Of course, the British economy has got this difficult journey from the debts of the past, but we're determined to complete this journey on behalf of the British people, so we have the jobs and growth and the prosperity that everyone wants to see.
So you might think that those jobs are on the way, because it was only this week we heard of 250 on the way as fashion firm Mulberry starts plans to open a factory in Bridgewater. But a report into the southwest economy being presented in Taunton this morning says there are only modest prospects that jobs for Somerset's unemployed will come from the private sector. Economist Nigel Jump has written the report for the Southwest Observatory, which is based in Somerset. Nigel, good morning.
Good morning.
And the government said private businesses would pick up the slack, as I said, as the public sector cut jobs. Is that happening, do you think?
I think it was happening last winter and into the spring, but it's slowed down a lot during the summer, and the real problem is that over the last 6 months, as the GDP figures showed yesterday, growth has been very modest, and in those environments, private sector jobs are not going to replace all the public sector jobs that are being lost at the moment.
Are the government admitting that things haven't quite gone the way they thought they would?
Yes, and obviously they're blaming the Greek situation and what's happening in the Eurozone, and I can understand that. The question is, how does we get the best out of our economy going forward? There's no doubt that in time the private sector will fill the gap, but the problem is that it could be quite a long time still.
Yeah, I was going to say, how long could that be, though?
Several years, no doubt about it. I mean, over the winter and through 2012, the economy in the UK is not forecast to grow enough to create net private jobs in the economy.
But what's your feeling on the overall picture? Has it got as bad as it can get, or have we still got to see worse before we get better?
The main issue there is what's happening in the Eurozone. If the Greek defaults and if we have problems there, what it means for our banks is that our banks won't be able to lend money to our companies here. So it does have an indirect effect on our economy and our small businesses and our ability to invest and export. And that's what we mean when we talk about rebalancing the economy. We've had an economy that's been dependent on consumer spending and government for most of the last 10, 15 years. When we talk about rebalancing, we're basically saying companies need to invest more and we need to export more. And to do that, they need confidence, and to do that, therefore, we need markets overseas. And that's why the Eurozone issue is so important.
Now, there is a bit of an issue about whether those kind of jobs match up with the skills of those made redundant in the public sector. Let's have a listen to Liz French, who's from the Somerset branch of the trade union Unison.
I don't think it's that easy at all unless you're on quite a low grade and you can take those transferable skills across to equal types of jobs, so that, yes, you can get catering jobs, you can get cleaning jobs, you can get low-key admin jobs, etc. But when you're talking about the specialist people that we have in the council that are potentially being made redundant, who maybe deal with transport, etc., then it's more difficult for them to use all their skills appropriately in the private sector, because they don't want those skills, they want their basic skills, and that means they're going into lower graded jobs.
Can you swap these skills around, Nigel?
It takes time, and that is the key issue with any economic change. People underestimate how long it takes to make these adjustments. Some of those people that your speaker was talking about certainly have great skills and great expertise and great experience, but it may not be immediately applicable to the world that they're moving into. So it does take time for people to adjust, and the economy takes time in that sense.
And is time what we need, or is there anything else that we can do to get jobs and the growth happening?
The main thing is people's confidence, and for that we need some leadership, we need some direction, we need some statements that the things will get better, as they will inevitably, unless you assume that our young people aren't entrepreneurial, that our companies aren't investing, and that our people aren't imaginative. Then you have to say eventually things will come right. But the real problem is the next year or so, when it takes time to make all these adjustments.
There's not a very optimistic tone to your voice, Nigel.
I think for the long term I am optimistic, but in the medium term, no. It's difficult to see things getting better unless we can sort out all these different uncertainties.
Nigel, thanks for joining me this morning. That's economist Nigel Jump, who's written a report on the region's economy for the Southwest Observatory, which is based in Taunton. Now, after 7:30, I'll see what we can learn from Yeovil about the state of the economy.